Hi everyone, this is Megzabo69 with Take the Red Pill. As I stated before in one of my earlier videos, there was a debate that I attended, and I am going to dissect that video in which I'm going to really concentrate more so on what the theist said, because there are a lot of things that he said that I have heard from many other theists in their inaccuracies, in their misconceptions. And so, like I said, I'm going to dissect his video and then put in my 2 cents in, if you will, at certain places. Now again, this is just to show what things that I've heard and how similar a lot of these things are. So I'm going to start off with his video, and then, like I said, I'm going to insert my comments in between. So without further ado, here we go.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. That was a very emotional introduction. I'm going to try today not to use the emotional play, but to just give you facts.
Facts coming from a theist? Facts as in to prove that God exists? This should be interesting.
I don't like or understand God, therefore he doesn't exist, is logically a problem. So I'm not going to be overly emotional, tell you about everything bad that happened in my life to try to convince you in that manner. I'm going to give you truth, definitions, and unlike my opponent, I'm going to give you references. Appreciation to Breathe Worship Center, first of all, for hosting tonight's debate. I'm very proud to call Breathe my church home, as I'm sure are many others who attend this church. Appreciation to the members of the Atheist Exchange as well, various atheist gatherings around Colorado for attending. My friends and family for coming, thank you. My appreciation is heightened, I think, by the fact that you guys haven't come to see two debating scholars in the area of science or philosophy, but just two friends that have been debating over an issue. I will address what he said, because all of it was wrong.
Wow, everything he said is wrong, right? Huh. So are you going in this already presupposing that everything he is saying is wrong and everything you're saying is right?
But first, I'm going to give you my contentions and then report on his in my second speech. The first point is that the concept of tonight's debate is reality. There we go. And that alone puts my opponent, I think, at a disadvantage for several reasons. First of these being that in philosophy, reality is the state of things as they actually exist, rather than they might appear or be imagined. I'll say that again. Reality is the state of things as they actually exist, rather than they may appear or might be imagined.
Okay, so he wanted to use the philosophical definition of reality as things that actually exist rather than what they appear or are imagined. Wow, I thought we were supposed to be sticking with reality. However, if you want to, I guess I'll give you definitions that I got of reality, and I'll use the philosophical one as well. And it's state as something that exists independently of ideas concerning it. And also something that exists independently of all other things, and from which all other things derive. So if it's something that exists independently of ideas concerning it, then how does that tie in or fit in with your definition of God? Just saying.
I find it funny that even the dictionary definition of reality reminds us that our perception of reality is highly imaginative or flawed. The dictionary should just say, reality, definition, you're doing it wrong. But how are we doing it wrong? For example, I'm sure everyone in the room is aware that there are sounds that really exist that humans can't hear, right? Dogs can hear them. There are certain colors that we can't see. Because there's only a small field of the electromagnetic spectrum that humans can see. Therefore, it seems as if the dictionary is accurate in saying that reality is the state of things as they actually are, not as you perceive them to be. The world doesn't look or sound how we think it does.
Okay, so he agreed with the definition of reality as the state of things as they actually are, and as they actually are, not as you perceive them to be. So again, if it is how things actually are, not as they are perceived to be, how does that tie in with God? Because the thing is, people perceive God to be real, But the reality is, where's the proof that he is real? We haven't received enough evidence to prove that he is real. So wouldn't that make it that it's just a perception or assumption that he is real?
Reality is therefore objective and not subjective. I agree with my opponent on this point.
And so he further agrees with his opponent on what reality is. So far he's agreed to the definition of reality and what his opponent says that reality is. This should be interesting.
That is to say that reality is not subject to your opinion. It doesn't change based on what you think. Reality objects to your opinion. What do you might ask, what do I mean reality objects to your opinion? For instance, if you stand on a train track and think that reality is subject to you, the train will object to you, right? Reality is objective, not subjective. If everyone in the world thought, for instance, that this podium wasn't here, everyone in the world would simply be wrong, because reality is not subject to public perception. So we know two things so far. One is that human perception of reality is severely limited by our flawed senses. Colors we can't see, sounds we can't hear. Secondly, we know that reality doesn't care what we think of it. Our ideas on reality have no effect on reality itself. So how do we discover reality, whether God exists or doesn't? I think there are only two ways. One would be to somehow step outside of ourselves, to step outside of our subjective experience and see objective reality on the other side. But that's science fiction.
He said that's science fiction? I think that actually probably would be a good idea to step outside of what you perceive things to be, so that way you can be looking outside. You can be outside looking in, so you can be a little bit more objective versus being subjective to your own experiences.
The other way, I think, is the only one we're left with, is to establish the mind as a trustworthy thing and thus begin scientific or philosophical inquiry with it.
Okay, so he said one thing is to establish that the mind is a trustworthy thing and thus begin scientific and philosophical inquiry with it. Yes and no. The mind is not always a trustworthy thing, because sometimes people see things that are not there. Sometimes people perceive things that are not there. Sometimes people are just fooled by their own minds. So that I don't agree with. However, I do agree that we do need to start our own philosophical and scientific, especially, inquiries. That's how we're going to start being on the path to learning the truth.
Here then is my first point against Jason's view on reality. I, as a Christian theist, though recognizing my own flawed sensory experience, can trust my mind with the task of investigating reality. Why? Because my brain and the universe have one and the same author.
Ah, okay. So your brain and the universe have one and the same author. I think I hear a presupposition coming along, because number one, where's the proof on this? So now I think we are going / leading somewhere.
My brain, in other words, was purposed with the task of making such discoveries, whether scientific, philosophical, or otherwise. On Jason's worldview, however, not only are our senses flawed, but add to that there is nothing which exists objectively with a perfect grasp on reality, nor were our minds built with the purpose of grasping reality.
Okay, so he said that Jason's worldview of there is nothing which exists objectively with a perfect grasp of reality, nor was our mind built with the purpose of grasping reality. Now, you will see that I will link the actual video to this, but as you will see, this is a straw man fallacy that he's using, because Jason never said this, and so now he's putting words into Jason's mouth and trying to use those words as his hold for his argument, so he can diffuse it. Again, straw man fallacy, but you're going to see this a lot going on. Just hold on and watch.
The truth is therefore illusory. As world-renowned scientist Richard Dawkins says in his book, River Out of Eden, DNA neither knows nor cares. DNA just is, and we dance to its music. So, if, according to atheism, we're all just dancing to the music of our DNA, unable to make our own choices because we're animals, then why is Jason so upset about these atrocities?
Okay, I've been looking at my notes, and I'm going to really look at my notes this time, because this last one was a doozy. He said that Richard Dawkins, he quoted Richard Dawkins as saying, and I quote, "We dance to music of our own DNA," unquote. So then he uses that's using a fallacy called, then he uses a fallacy called generalization, because he turned around and says, if according to atheism we are just dancing to the music of our DNA, unable to make our own choices because we are animals, then why is Jason so upset about these atrocities? Okay, so here's the fallacy again. He's making a fallacy of generalization, because he quoted something from Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins is an atheist, so all of a sudden now all atheists think the same way and say the same thing? No. Atheism, for one thing, here's the thing. Atheism just states, I don't believe in a deity. That's it. It's that simple. So he already has a misconception of what atheism is, right off the bat. And second of all, no one stated that we are unable to make our own choices. Again, that's a straw man fallacy. He's putting words into Jason's mouth to sit there and make an argument and try to diffuse the argument with the words that he infused into somebody else's mouth. It doesn't work that way. Sorry. Again, that's straw man fallacy. And the last thing is, he said, why is Jason so upset about these atrocities? Well, here's the thing. We as humans have a tendency to care about our other fellow humans. And so, if we see an atrocity happening to another human, whether we do something about it or not, we generally will have a tendency to feel sorry for that other person. I mean, if we're walking down the street and we see somebody getting beat, we may not want to go in there and jump in there because we may be afraid that we're going to get beaten as well. But we will feel some type of remorse for the individual who is getting whooped. That's just human nature. So to say why are we upset about these atrocities because we quote unquote think that humans are animals, again, generalization. He is just looking at one thing and stating, okay, well, here's the way all atheists think, and not asking questions. He apparently did not do his research to find this out for himself. I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to continue on again in my next video, because I'm going to try to keep this as short as I can. I don't want to make it too long to lose interest. But like I said, I will continue dissecting these videos so that way you can see the fallacies and the inaccuracies that this individual, Matt, is using. So this is Megzable 69 with Take the Red Pill. We will see you shortly.